Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching or listening to this. This is episode 4 of Rovers Rambles, and you know the drill by now. You know who I'm joined by. Good afternoon, Jaimie.
Good afternoon.
Well, we've got a few things to talk about. I think we'll get straight into the last game of the season, of course, Notts County. 1-1 draw, couldn't quite keep that winning run going, but it's 9 unbeaten to finish the season. And I thought second half especially was a pretty decent performance considering who we were playing.
Yeah, very decent. Yeah, I think that's underselling it. I mean, the first half was a little bit slow at times. I think we were a little bit wasteful at times, but mainly on the ball. Well, obviously. But yeah, the second half was a very good showing. I think they were a bit off it the second half, but I think we did definitely take it up a level.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think Notts started off quite well, I think. Obviously, they had a few chances early on. I think we had one from Shaq, was it? Maybe sort of 7 minutes in that Belshaw did quite well to get down to. And that was about all we had for the first sort of 15, 20 minutes. You felt in the first half it was kind of only a matter of time until Notts got a goal. And I think it only took about, 25 minutes or something for them to score. But obviously, we'll get onto it in a minute. But the second half performance was a lot better. We're creating far more chances. We restricted Notts, for probably about 25, 30 minutes. Again, we'll get to this, but I think the game sort of switched again with that Yusuf miss. I think after that, Notts were back to being all over us. Of course, they had that disallowed goal, which was offside, to be fair. I've seen it back. The lino and the ref made the right decision, but obviously that could have been on a different...
Otherwise.
Yeah, well, on a different day. But I think, a draw was a fair result, I think. On the balance of play, I think Notts won the first half, we won the second half.
Yeah, it was a game of two halves. First half, I was really impressed with them, I have to say. They played like a side that were fighting to get automatics. They were they were right up for it, off the ball in particular. Their press was really strong.
You could tell that they...
Sorry, go on.
No, you could tell that they were in that dogfight, and you could tell they were up for that dogfight as well, of course. You can have it sort of where you're in one of those high-pressure situations, those crunch games, and things sort of fall apart because you can't hack the pressure. But especially in the first half, Notts were dealing with it very well, to be fair to them.
Yeah, no, really, really well. Yeah, like I said, off the ball, as much as I thought we were a little bit wasteful in possession at times, I feel like they did a lot to kind of instigate that. I thought they were really, really high energy. They weren't really giving us any freedoms to play out. We were going back to those old school, just hit it to the big man up top, because we didn't really have anything else. We were really struggling to play through them, which did limit us. Because the times we did manage to play through them, we looked threatening in that first half. I mean, the chance that Shaq had came from, I think it might have been a bit of good fortune at the start, but where we were able to get the ball on the floor and pop it around them a little bit. But we were really limited for our opportunities to do that, which I think is a testament to how they played.
I think it's true what you were saying, that when we had those opportunities to get the ball on the floor, play, our style, we did look threatening. We had chances. It's just Notts did very well I thought their press was pretty good. I must say. The high press was incredible, and I think it was one of the big reasons they ended up scoring their goal, which we'll get onto in a minute. But yeah, their press they were very intense, I thought, and obviously you'd like to think they would be in the situation they're in, but they had an intensity to their game that, I mean, maybe it is the nature of who we played, but I don't think we've seen an opponent have against us for a long time. Of course, that's a big reason, I think, why we've obviously not taking away from what we've done with winning 8 games in a row, but I think that is a big reason and a big help why we've got to 8 games in a row. And I think, I'm not saying we completely capitulated against that high press, that intense press, but it was a lot more for us to deal with. And I think that's why we struggled a bit in the first half.
Yeah, we had to adapt our game. I think that's the biggest thing. We weren't able to play how we have been playing and how we've been so successful playing for a while. We didn't really get the width involved in the way we wanted to. I don't think everything was very congested when we were trying to keep it tidy, which was the only way we could open the game up was by just hitting those long balls, which I think their centre-backs started particularly very well. They were very dominant. I think, we were struggling. And
I think that's the problem with us, is when we win the midfield battle, we win it by having those wide options out in midfield. When the team forces us to play narrow in the middle, we always seem to get overrun. And I must say, I don't want to, but I thought de Havilland struggled a bit out there on Saturday. I thought we looked a little bit shaky with him. I think overall he's been solid, but I just think he had one of those games on Saturday.
Yeah, he struggled. He was the outlier if you were going to kind of pick a name out of who struggled.
Yeah.
The game seemed to kind of just pass him by a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Which it's something we have seen at times this season, not necessarily from him, but in general. Which, I mean, you think back to some of like Thompson Summers, some of the performances he's put in, he's shown a lot of similar qualities, a lot of similar performances where the game does just kind of seem to pass him by at times.
Yeah.
Was what I felt was the case with Ryan.
I think for Ryan, it was a bit more one of those rare things. It happens sometimes, doesn't it? You're not going to play brilliant in every game, and I think they were able to exploit, though, the fact that Ryan was not firing on all cylinders. And like I said, it was true when you play narrow in midfield against us, we do seem to fold a little bit, and I think we know how important the midfield battle is in football these days, and I think especially against us, for whatever reason, if you can win the midfield battle against us, we always seem to fold. And I think they did that particularly well in the first half. And that's probably the reason why they did so well. And obviously they got a few chances after, I think once Shaq, had that miss, that was pretty much us done in terms of chances until after they scored. And they kept piling on the pressure. And obviously, was the game on Sky Sports? Because it was the last game of the season.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And I don't know if you got that sense as you were watching that it just felt inevitable that Notts would eventually score.
Yeah, no, I said it at the time. I said it's definitely been coming. It was you could tell it was coming. If anyone was going to score in that first half, it was them.
Yeah, definitely. I felt like it wasn't sort of to that point yet where it was inevitability that we lose the game and all this, which we have had in the past. But it's the first time in a while where I felt an inevitability be about us conceding. And like we've seen games like the Cheltenham game and all this, where you just have no doubt in your mind that we keep a clean sheet. Even if we do concede, you're just like, oh, well, that's unexpected. Whereas with Notts County on Saturday, you felt it was coming. Whether we could have, obviously, in the end, we did get a draw and all this. Whether we could have turned it around was another thing. But you just felt that it was going to come at some point, and we haven't had that feeling in a while.
Yeah, no. Again, I think that is just a testament to how they played. I think that is just a byproduct of the energy they put in. You're going to get a little bit of a kick naturally last game of the season when you've still got something to fight for. They definitely had a lot more to play for than we did. Yeah. But you could tell, like you mentioned earlier, it can go one of two ways. You can kind of fold under it, or you can excel off the back of it. And I think particularly in that first half, they did go the latter. They did excel off the back of that.
Well, I think what I was saying obviously earlier about, and what you just mentioned, I think a good example, obviously, I know in very different situations, but Tranmere, when we played them, obviously it's a very different type of pressure, but they had a lot to deal with. They had to perform. And obviously they did play somewhat well, but they folded under the slightest bit of pressure from us. And obviously we put stuff on to Notts County in the first half, not nearly as much we did in the second, but they still had stuff to deal with. And they dealt with it very well, took the game by the scruff of the neck. And you've got to give credit to them for that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I don't think that they can really have too many complaints with their first half performance, which I think made it as much of a surprise as it was when you look at their second half and how heavily things dropped.
Yeah, that is true. We'll get on to the second half, but we'll talk about Notts' goal first. I believe it was Shaq that was dispossessed pretty much on the halfway line. Again, it was their high press working really well. But I believe we just cleared out, we'd had a block just literally before that, and then Shaq picks it up on the middle. They pressed well, they win it back. The thing I will say is, why did we give Jody Jones that much space on the left-hand flank? He's such a good player, and we just let him stroll in and get the cross. You do not give a player of Jody Jones's quality. I mean, you don't give anyone that much space, but especially if they're Jody Jones.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that's something he's fabled for, is his deliveries. His left foot is an absolute joke. Yeah. I can't remember which foot he put the cross in. I'll be honest, I haven't watched the game back, and I was watching the game on the coach with a very laggy connection. So if
I can't remember what foot it was. I can't remember which foot it was. I think he is ambidextrous, and he can play with both feet.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember which foot it was, but the cross was beautiful, to be fair. I can't remember quite whose head it found, but obviously they got a header on that was blocked by Mola, and then I can't remember his name's quite hard to pronounce, so I'm not even going to try because I don't want to butcher it. But the man coming in completely unmarked from what I can remember, and he just slotted it into the back of the net. It was pretty poor defending, I've got to say.
Yeah, no, it was. It was a case of, again, you can not necessarily as much in this instance, but it was kind of just a product of that whole half of us struggling to get out in any sense.
Yeah,
we just couldn't. When the pressure was on us, we were just really struggling to just kind of ease things. Our only real way out was, again, like I've mentioned, just those massive balls out. And I know in this case it's a little bit different because we're fighting to clear it rather than fighting to play out. But again, you saw a similar pattern of we just could not kind of break the force that was coming at us.
Yeah, and I think it's true. Yeah, we were struggling to clear it. We were struggling to break that press. But the press for the goal was pretty good, like I said. And the work from Jody Jones, of course, we made it too easy for him, but it's still a decent run, a brilliant cross as well. And that's that's the sort of caliber of player that can really impact a game, Jody Jones. And I think that's why Notts have a massive asset on their hand with him. And I think, if he can fire like he did in that, obviously they only scored one goal, but if he can play like he did in that, then they've got a good chance in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, this is probably going to be a whole nother discussion about who we think wins the playoffs. But I definitely think if they're somebody I consider favourites if they're on it.
Yeah.
If they play like they did in the first half, I think they're favourites. If they play like they did in the second half, they're going to struggle.
Then they're going to struggle. Yeah. But I think after that goal, it was sort of the half. I wouldn't necessarily say fizzled out because I still think we had quite a lot of pressure on us. We did, of course, have that one chance, which I think was also from Shaq, which was another good save from Belshot. If anything, it was a better save than the original, the first chance early on. That was about all we had.
Was that not start of the second half? That one.
Was it? I thought it was sort of like 35 minutes in. Belshot made a save with his legs. I'm sure it was.
It might have been.
In the first
Shaq
half.
Had 3 chances.
Shaq had 3 chances. You're thinking of we'll get onto it, but you're thinking of the one where he just dragged it wide, I think.
This
is the one. Yeah, this is because he had 2 that were saved by Belshot, and this was the second one.
Yeah, because the first one was the one where there was the penalty shout.
Yeah. Which we haven't talked about actually.
Yeah.
I completely skipped over both of them. There were 2 penalty shouts in that game. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the first one was for Notts on Mola, and I've seen different angles of this one. There's some angles that make it look like he's won the ball and it's no penalty and all this. There's other angles where it looks like he's completely wiped him out. So I'm not 100% sure what to think. I can see why the Notts fans are aggrieved with it though, because I mean, especially if you look at the certain angles, there are some angles that make it look like a stone wall. That's the problem with football sometimes though, is the camera angles and all this can play with your perception of a challenge, of a decision, because I've seen angles, like I said, where I thought it was a penalty, and I've seen some where I thought, hang on, he's won the ball, why are they complaining? And it's difficult, because obviously at the end of the day, I mean, the referees, we won't talk about them too much, because that could be its whole other discussion. They do get a lot wrong, but when you've got a decision like that, sometimes you've got to cut them a little bit of slack, because I think it was quite a difficult one to make.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because I think the main angle, which gives the biggest idea that it was a penalty, which for the record, I think it probably was.
Yeah, I agree with this. But I'm just saying I've seen different angles.
The angle that gives the best view is the one from behind the goal.
Yeah.
And then you look at the position of both the referee and the linesman. I think their views are a lot worse.
Yeah.
I think you definitely get a much clearer picture of it from the stands, which from that angle, I do believe it was a penalty, but I can also understand why the ref hasn't seen it that way, because he was adamant as well. It wasn't like there was any sort of indecision in his mind. He was adamant that no contact was made.
Well, he was so adamant that he gave a yellow for simulation, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, that's kind of what convinced me at the time that it wasn't, because not only he was adamant, Mola was adamant as well. They were both very, very confident there was nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I've seen specific angles, but like you said, when you see it from behind the stand, that's sort of like, forward onto the pitch. That's probably the best angle for these things. And that angle I've seen is the one where there's no contact. So it probably was a penalty, but we can talk about that all day. At the end of the day, it wasn't. And at the end of the day, the Ellis Harrison one wasn't a penalty. And I've seen that back. Yeah, there's a pull on the shirt there, isn't there? Whether it's enough contact to say penalty or no penalty, Not sure, but there's 100% a pull on the shirt. I mean, yeah, another day that definitely could have been one.
Yeah, and this is one where you can cut the referee as much slack because he has a full view of it. But it's just a case of how much is there, because it's a difficult one. It is a difficult one because it's also whether there is actually a pull of a shirt or if it's more just a tug back of the arm.
Yeah,
Looking at it back, you can see the pull of the shirt. At the time, I can sort of understand why you would see it more as a pull of the arm. I wasn't actually 100% sure at the time which way I'd go. Again, I was slightly on the fence. So again, at the time, I wasn't too upset with the decision. It's only really in reflection that, yeah, I again do think it was a penalty.
Yeah, I think it's one of those difficult ones where, especially when the contact is sort of not disguised, but in an awkward area, which I think the pull on Ellis's shirt was. It can be difficult for a ref to truly see whether that was a pull of the shirt or not. I want to ask you this. I think it's maybe me reaching a bit, but do you reckon there might have been a bit of the referee's mind that thought, well, I've denied NOTTS a stonewaller here. I should probably, even if I think maybe just dial it back a little bit, just to even it out? Or do you think that's a bit unprofessional and the ref probably wasn't thinking that? Do you think that can sneak in referees' heads though?
Yeah, I don't know if it was so much of a conscious thing, but I do think that is definitely something that plays on the mind when you have a big decision that you've not given. Naturally, your kind of level of leniency does change with that. I feel like the way that referees referee a game isn't necessarily consistent from game to game, but they try and keep it consistent within that game.
Yeah,
and that's where kind of the bigger issues come, is when you see the differences in the same game. For me, a reason why I'm not necessarily as annoyed with this one is because, like I said, I do think it evened out. And I think the bigger issues that people have with referees is when you see something happen at one end and then something similar happen at the other end, and two completely
two completely different outcomes. Yeah, but I agree with you with that point that obviously I saw back the highlights and I said to you on WhatsApp, I said, didn't I? I've seen the Harrison incident and my God, if we hadn't have had that Mola incident go our way, I would be seething. But I wasn't, because I knew that we'd got lucky in that regard, and it evens itself out. And I think it's one of those where if you've had a decision go your way with not getting, you can't be too. Obviously, you can complain about the decision being wrong, but you can't be like, oh well, they've been completely robbed, because in some ways you've robbed NOTTS. Obviously, it's all swings and roundabouts, but I think that's a big reason why I'm not like coming on this pod and throwing pitchforks, seething at the ref for not giving that penalty, because obviously we've been helped out in a way with Mola's penalty shout.
And obviously it does help as well that we had a lot less to play for. I think they've definitely raised their voice a lot more, which is understandable because they had an opportunity to achieve something that we were nowhere near. So
definitely.
They're gonna care a lot more about the outcome.
But,
it's a difficult one.
Yeah, definitely is, and I think it's a debate really for another podcast. I think we're too Rovers focused. I think that would be sort of more of an EFL thing, but it's an interesting debate to have sometimes. Anyway, I thought after that, obviously, after they scored, we got a little bit sidetracked talking about the penalties, but after they scored, it was just sort of more of the same. Although I thought we dealt with the pressure slightly better. I don't think, obviously, we were still, being pegged back and NOTTS were having a lot of chances, but I thought you never really felt like once we conceded, there was maybe for about 10 minutes after, but sort of going into halftime, you felt it was going to be 1-0. You didn't feel like there was any danger of it being 2 or 3.
Yeah, no, 100%. We didn't look particularly threatening, which was again the case when we got the ball down and played. We did look threatening, but we were so limited on the chances to do that. I wasn't counting on any major shifts before halftime.
No. And I think even defensively, I mean, obviously NOTTS were getting more of the possession, more that they weren't really creating much with it after they scored. And you sort of felt like, 1-0 is probably the only outcome going into half-time. And obviously that's how it finished.
100%.
Yeah, and then going into the second half, of course, Steve does what he does best, makes the changes. I believe it was Homie didn't start, did he? He came on at half-time.
No, he didn't start,
Yeah, and then Yusuf came on. Did he make 3 subs at halftime, or was it only 2?
Just the two, I believe.
Yeah. And obviously they pretty much had an impact within 10 minutes with the goal. Really lovely ball from Tommy Lee. I've seen it back on the highlights. It was great, at the time in the stands, but my goodness, what a ball.
Yeah, no, fantastic ball. Really well taken as well.
Yeah.
When you look towards the actual finish, there are some question marks. You can guide Belshaw's way. But in terms of
Yeah,
how
that
Harrison's
is true.
taken it, he's just made sure he's got it in his path and got the shot off, kept it low, hit it hard. And yeah, all round, from our perspective, very good goal.
Yeah, well, I think that's true what you were saying. Obviously, we're giving a lot of credit to Tommy for the ball, which it was a fantastic ball. But still, for Ellis, he's had to bring it down, and he's brought it down fantastic, of course. He's got to keep his run going, try and keep the ball under control, which he's done very well. And then, obviously, like you said, question marks over Belshaw. He has let it through his legs. It's poor goalkeeping, but still, Ellis has got to, just hit it hard, and he's got hit it sort of across. Obviously, it's gone through Belshaw, but he's hit it across goal, which is what you want to do. You don't want to hammer it near post because that makes it a lot harder. And it is a good finish. And obviously that put us level. And I think with the balance of, obviously it was early on in the second half, but I think even with the balance of those sort of 10 minutes of play, we deserved that.
Yeah, no, 100%. You could see the shift instantly. Like,
Yeah.
it felt like a completely different game from the very beginning of the second half.
Yeah.
Like,
100%.
obviously that Czech chance that we mentioned briefly earlier, that was pretty early on, as far as I remember. Which from that was, he had the three chances. That was the one that I thought he should have put away.
Oh yeah, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
but yeah, obviously you could feel the momentum shift, and then we got our rewards. Harrison takes it very well. I don't think you really can ask much more of him from the strike, as much as you point fingers at the keeper. I don't think you can ask him to do much better than he did. Well, especially not when you see the result of it, but even just for the strike itself, I don't think there's much more you'd really expect of a striker there, and especially in the form that he's in.
Yeah, well, speaking of, it's 8 goals in 8 games to end off the season. Did he finish on 14 goals in all competitions? Considering,
I think so, yeah.
Considering, how bad our season has been, and I must say, I was talking about Ellis earlier on in the season. Obviously, this is before we started the podcast, and sort of February, March time, even when we were and saying like, I don't think he's that great. I think he's quite slow up front. He doesn't offer. I was saying to you, he was just Quigley but worse. And in the end,
I remember you saying that.
Yeah, and in the last sort of 2-3 games, he's really come to life. Obviously, he was popping up with goals here and there, but he's really started to show his stuff. And the fact that he's come from where he was, obviously he scored a hat-trick against Cheltenham, which helped. But to finish only 1 goal behind our top goal scorer in Caven is pretty impressive. And I mean, he's showing what he can do and making me excited that he's going to be at the club next season, which we'll get onto with the retained list later. But it's nice to see we've got a player like that who can make that impact. Even if he doesn't necessarily start much next season, he can come off the bench, do a job, and he's just versatile, I think, which is nice to see.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it almost feels as though his game is slightly adapted as the season's gone on. It felt very much like he was leaning into being that kind of, I don't want to say poacher, but being that very like the target man, embracing his physicality. And I feel like that's something that kind of Quigley's more transformed into, and he's almost become a bit more of a get the ball on the floor, get it to his feet, and kind of get him involved in the play rather than being the focus of the end of it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And
no, I agree.
That's done wonders for him. I mean, I'm saying it's done wonders for him, he very may well have a League 2 Player of the Month to end the season off.
That is a good point. Yeah, that is a very good point. And I think it would be thoroughly deserved if he won it. Obviously, we can talk about that later. Steve Evans as well, Manager of the Month nomination. If he doesn't win that, then there's a fix, surely, because he won literally every game in April.
Yeah, but there's no jinx to worry about as well because the season's over.
That is true. Yeah, we'll get on. We can talk about that in a minute. But yeah, obviously that was a good way to start the second half. Pretty much 10 minutes in, and we're back level. And from there, I thought we went into the ascendancy a bit. I mean, Notts were still getting some possession. They were challenging our defence somewhat, but we were getting forward a lot more. We were creating a lot more chances. And I thought at that point in the game, sort of 55 to 75 minutes, I thought if anyone's going to win this, it's going to be us. With the amount of chances we were having, the possession we were maintaining, Notts weren't getting anywhere near us really. I thought we might be able to nick it, and we very nearly did when it was a mix-up at the back and Yusuf picked up how he's missed that chance. I mean, you've got to put that away, haven't you?
So this is where I'm going to kind of need to take your word for things, because my stream on the bus I was on died about the second that Harrison's ball hit the net for about 15, 20 minutes. So this Yusuf chance I actually haven't seen at this point, but I remember a big deal being made of it.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. He's picked the ball up, I think, sort of maybe 16 yards out. He's just inside the box. He's one-on-one with Belshaw. Belshaw's not in the greatest of positions, to be honest. He's slightly off to the right, I think. He's not quite central. He could get across to it, but he's made it a lot harder for himself than he should have, if you know what I mean. And all Yusuf's got to do is tuck it into that bottom left corner, and he somehow managed to drag it wide. It was a pretty poor finish, to be honest. I think it was just one of them from Yusuf. He's shown so much composure over the past sort of 4 months that he's been with us, and I think it was just one of those that he's finally had a moment where he's lacked a bit of composure. And obviously, it's annoying, but I mean, it's going to happen eventually, and it's somewhat of a wonder it's taken until the final day for it to happen for him.
Yeah, it's somewhat of a wonder, and also it's somewhat of a testament to how good he is.
Yeah.
But then again, that's also a good thing about the situation we're in, that we're not going to sit here and get on his back, because it's not like that's exactly cost us. If we were in Nott's position, that could be a pretty significant moment in his development for someone that young.
Yeah. Or even if we were in the sort of position where we hadn't really pulled away from the bottom two. You imagine if that was like a final day, we score that and we're safe, and he misses. That would have, I mean, it's a good thing that we've pulled away. I mean, I'm just so glad we didn't have to worry about any of that at the end on Saturday.
It's actually a kind of a good game to quantify that off when you look at Notts County and you look at our first game against Notts County, and you think back to the amount of chances we missed in that and how significant we thought that was going to be at the time. How much of a punch that was when we essentially dominated them from the moment they went down to 10 men, and then
17 shots.
First shot of any significance, they score. And they lose the game 1-0.
God, please don't remind me of that.
Yeah, but again, that's
awful.
A testament to the way the position's changed. I mean, even that day, you think of someone like Freddie Asaka, who was well involved but didn't put a chance away.
No,
that could have been a pretty significant turning point for him, and a big reason why he's not here now. And luckily, we don't have to kind of put as many stakes on the game anymore because we have pulled away.
Well, yeah, that's what you were saying. Like, with the use of chance, obviously, the annoying we missed, and very easily could have been the difference between us only drawing that game and getting those 3 points. But it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. It's annoying, but we've still got a point. You know, we had nothing to play for. I mean, that point has meant we finish in 14th, and that's about it. We could have dropped to 15th if we lost, and that was the only jeopardy, I say in air quotes, on the game. Whereas, like you said, with the stuff with Notts County home game, that was terrible, and some of the missed chances really could have cost us. So it is nice to have that sort of safety net in a way.
Yeah, no, massively. And I think as much as we've still been approaching every game wanting to win it, we have definitely played like a team with a lot of the pressure taken off in recent weeks. I think all round that's been visible. Yeah,
that is very true. I think after that Yusuf miss, I think that was when the game sort of switched back a little bit and Notts got more on the ascendancy. I think they sort of were buoyed, right. That was if we were going to lose this game, that was it. That was the chance. Let's go for it now. And they were pushing. We did quite well to deal with it, to be fair, though. And obviously, it looked, though, I think, was it 4 minutes from time? It was the 86th minute, as if it was all going to be in vain. Cross from, I think, Dennis, their number 19 or 39, one of the two, goes all the way to the back post. and it was a very good cross because it ended up well, not a very good cross because it didn't find a head, but it put us in danger because it whacked the back post and caused a bit of chaos in that. And then they had that Jacob Badil, I think his name was, come in, stealing, free header, 2-1. You thought that was it. Ref, well, the lino, I should say, puts his flag up offside and the goal doesn't stand. Now, I don't know if your stream would come back by this point. I've seen the highlights. I think he's offside. I think it's the right decision.
My stream is on at this point. I couldn't tell from the angle. The angle that I've kind of gone off to get my verdict on it is there was one fan angle. I don't know if you've seen.
No, I haven't seen that actually. No.
A pretty good view of it. It's like a tiny bit angled, which makes it a little bit awkward, but it's near enough dead in line. And it does look. It's very close. It is very, very close. But I think he has just straight offside.
Right. Yeah. To be fair, I've seen the angle from the highlights, and it is close. I'll give you that, but I think he's just about gone too quick. I think, and obviously we'll never know because there's no VAR or anything. But I think,
thank God,
we can be. We might be slightly biased saying this. Obviously, being Rovers fans, a lot of fans will say, "Well, of course you think it's offside," but from what we've seen on replays and such, I think we can both agree that it's close, but it's probably the right decision.
Yeah, well, the attacker's definitely not behind. He's either dead in line or just ahead.
Yeah, if he's onside, he's onside. He's onside by this much. If he is onside,
it's ridiculously fine margins. It's actually a lot finer than it first looked. Seeing the other angle I have seen, which I mean I can't get it to now, but I'll show you it afterwards, and you'll see what I'm on about.
Right,
it's very, very tight.
Yeah, fair enough. And then obviously that was probably the moment, if NOTTS were going to win the game, that was the moment they needed to take. And obviously they technically did, but it was chalked off by the lino. And from there, it was just sort of comfortable enough to see out of the game. NOTTS had the majority of the possession in sort of those last 4 minutes at a time. But we never really looked like we were under much threat of giving away another second goal.
No, it was desperation ball at that point.
Yeah,
we've been there.
Yeah, haven't we just been there? Yeah. And in the end, full-time whistle goes 1-1, which I think for how we played in the first half, who we're playing, it's a good result, isn't it? Let's be fair. It's not a win, which is a shame we couldn't keep that winning streak going into next season, but still, I mean, you can't complain. 9 games unbeaten, and I mean, it was a good performance to end off the season, which is all you want. And we've gone from being 21st at the start of March with 31 points to ending the season in 14th on 62. That is such a crazy stat to me. In the past 2 months, we've doubled our points tally compared to what we had from August to March. It's insane.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. And I think that definitely the thing that I take the most from the game was that second half performance, because I think definitely a big, not issue, but a big talking point of the run that we've been on is we haven't really been tested in terms of the quality of side that we've played. So it was definitely, it was refreshing and relieving to go up against a side that are right in the mix and to kind of go stride for stride with them, particularly in that second half where we kind of surpassed them.
Yeah.
It's encouraging as we move into next season. It definitely gives us that kind of feeling that if we get things right over the summer, there's something that could happen here.
It just gives you that belief that you can mix it in with the big boys, because that is true what you were saying. That has been one of the biggest sort of detractions from this winning run is like, oh, well, you've won 8 games in a row, but you've been playing Harrogate, Crawley, Tranmere, all these, you know, with this, no disrespect to the naff sides. Harrogate went down, so, I mean, obviously. The moment you play one decent side, you're going to lose, it's all going to fall apart. We've gone to Notts County, who are a very decent side. You can't deny that. And okay, we didn't win, but there were positive signs there. We've got a result, and on another day, we definitely could have won. And I think that proves that as long as we get our summer recruitment right, which I think we are in the positions to do, and I trust Steve and Paul to do that, then I don't see why we can't, be, on that, going into that game against someone like Notts County if they don't win the playoffs as equals.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, you used the term there, mixing it with the big boys. The reality is, in this division, we shouldn't see it as an achievement that we're mixing with them. We should
No,
be one of them.
yeah,
But that's now on us to establish
to
next
become
season.
one. Yeah,
And I think we're in a really good position to do that now.
yeah, definitely. I think that is probably the biggest thing. I mean, we've got to be under no illusions that this season has still been poor. I mean, to go down from League One, I mean, we are one of the biggest teams in the league. Let's be completely honest. And to only finish mid-table, and to only finish mid-table because we have been in title-winning form over the past 2 months, it isn't a good enough season. But you've got the positives there. You've got to take them. And I think it's what you were saying, I think, on episode 2, about how we just need to look forward. We can't look back now because what's happened has happened. And we've just got to keep going and look at the past, but look at the past in a positive way of like, just don't think about the last 2 months where we've been incredible and how can we keep that going forward.
Use the past as a benchmark to show where we are now, rather than using it as something to take in as like, oh, this could happen again. No, use that to show where we've progressed from in as much time as we have.
Show where we've come from and give us a motivation to go where we can go.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, right, we're just going to talk quickly. We mentioned it earlier. We're going to get on to the retained list after this. We'll just quickly talk about those awards that you talked about. Ellis Harrison nominated for Player of the Month. Steve Evans nominated for Manager of the Month for April. And I think Ellis, deservedly so, like we were saying, we've pretty much covered what we thought about Ellis getting Player of the Month for August. But I think it's April. It's definitely, But I think he's had a very good impact. Of course, he got the hat-trick against Cheltenham. Did he score 6 goals in April? Was it 6?
It might have even been 7. No,
it was. It was
because there was the free last week. He got 2 against Harrogate.
Yeah,
there was
Did you get one
in the middle of those games, and then was there one before?
Yeah, he got one against. So he got one against Crawley. Quigley scored against Fleetwood. So yeah, he got 2 against Harrogate, 1 against Crawley, 3 against Cheltenham is 6. So he got 7, I think.
It's I
know,
should have have seen them, but I can't remember them off the top of my head.
I think it was 6. I'm being slightly stupid because I was counting Notts County. That's in May.
It's whether there was one right at the start of the month. I can't remember.
No, I don't think so. If the Harrogate were the first, because obviously Fleetwood was the first game of the month, and Quigley was the goal scorer in that one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. No, Gillingham wasn't this month.
Gillingham was in March.
Yeah.
But still, 6 goals in a month, very impressive. And I think you were saying as well, even the off the ball stuff. He sort of leads the line very well. He's a good presence up front, and he's quite a good teammate to have up there. Not necessarily for his goal contributions on their own, but to have someone to play like that to play off is very important for a team like ours. And I think it proves in his performance this month and in his stats as well. And I think it's a big reason why he's been nominated.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, we kind of spent all of last week waxing lyrical about him, and which kind of leads us into a good place here. But yeah, he has, like I said, completely transformed his game over the course of the season. I think last week was probably the biggest testament of that. With obviously the hat-trick, but his overall performance, where he was just so influential in so many different areas from start to finish.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Yeah, he's really impressed me. He's earned himself a new contract in 8 games. And hopefully now does get the award to go with it, which I think he will.
Yeah, I can definitely see it. I think it's not as nailed on as the Manager of the Month, which of course we'll get onto. But I think with the month he's had, with the stats he's had, and even if you just watch the performances without the goals to add the extra context, he still played well. Even obviously he wouldn't be Player of the Month territory if he hadn't scored 6 goals, but you could still look at his April with, say, he hadn't scored any and thought, well, he's doing well. He just needs to get that killer edge, and he's found that killer edge in April, and I think that's big reason why he's been pushed into that Player of the Month nominee, and a big reason why I do think I agree with you. I wouldn't say it's nailed on, but I think he's definitely got a very good chance of winning it.
Yeah, I think the only thing that can maybe stop him is if there's a bit more of a focus now with us coming to the end of the season on the players that have contributed to a bigger goal.
Yeah, that is
a little bit of the team bias towards the individual achievement.
Yeah, that is a very good point. Obviously, we've got nothing to play for now, so obviously he's had a good April, but he's not been pushing towards a goal of promotion or survival, any of this. And that could play into it. That could be a bias that plays into it, which is very true. I think you do see it as well sometimes in these sort of awards.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think at every level. I mean, even if you look at the very top, there you can see it. Apparently, even at the very, very top, things like the Ballon d'Or seem to now be won by the player that won the most
Big
trophies.
game. Yeah.
Yeah. You score in a World Cup final when you're top 5 of the Ballon d'Or, guaranteed. But you do definitely see it everywhere. There is a focus on a striker that can get 6 goals in a month for a team that needs 6 goals in a month is going to be valued more than Ellis Harrison doing it.
A striker who's just got 6 goals for the Well, definitely. Right, I think someone who's nailed on to win their award, nailed on, and if he doesn't win it, let's be honest, it's a fix. Steve Evans, Manager of the Month. I mean, you cannot, even with what you said with the factoring in like big game scenarios and all this, winning every game in a month, you just cannot not give it to anyone else.
Yeah, well, you'd think that, but didn't he also do the same in March? And didn't get it?
No, because we lost against Bromley.
Of course we did, yeah. But even then, he probably still should have ended up nicking it then and didn't.
Yeah,
but now you'd like to think it's nailed on.
I mean, you can't not, can you? Even you can make the case in March with us losing to Bromley and all this, but winning every game in a month, and even when you consider, if you extrapolate that back on the back of what we'd done before that, we've just been so good. The last month and a half, and April was the sort of peak of that. And I mean, if he doesn't win it, it's a crime, really.
I think Cheltenham will be massive towards it, that Cheltenham game, because I think that was the statement piece that we needed. Because as much as we became the winners before, there was a little bit of not turmoil. There was a little bit of contest in there. So I think the fact that we ended the month on that statement piece should be that deciding factor, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. Obviously, it was a demolition job, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And you can look at those wins before and think, all right, they're wins, but some of them weren't that impressive. I mean, Harrogate was a good comeback, but we didn't play well. Tranmere, I mean, again, I think the comebacks do help, but they weren't good performances per se. But Cheltenham was an absolute demolition job. And like you said, I think that's a very good word that you use to describe it, a statement piece. Mm-hmm. That was our statement to the league, saying, hello, we are Bristol Rovers. This is what we're going to put forward. You better take note of us next season.
Yeah, no, exactly that. And it's looking like people are, certainly from the fan base perspective, they seem to be taking note. It seems like a lot of people are starting to get worried about what we can do going into next season.
Yeah.
And
well, that's obviously...
That's big. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's obviously good that we've got some players and obviously our manager finally starting to get recognition and awards. We're going to move on now, though, to our last topic of discussion for today. And, of course, end of the season. So, obviously, transfer, outgoings, ingoings, everything, contracts, the retained list. Came out yesterday, of course. We were expecting it to come out on Monday, but I think it got slightly delayed. But it's now out, and we'll talk about it now. Of course, we've got the majority of our players under contract. Obviously, we had our loans, which we'll get onto, but the majority of players, only 2 are out of contract and are leaving, and then the rest are in contract. We're not going to talk about the ones that are staying on no matter what, because that would be boring. We're just going to talk about the ones that are transfer listed or loan listed, a bit of both. Obviously, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 7 players that have made it onto the transfer list or the loan list, well, both. And for anyone who's unfamiliar, they are Luke Southwood, Taylor Moore, Isaac Hutchinson, Josh McEachran, Camille Conte, Macaulay Southern Hales, and Jed Ward. Now, personally, I think pretty decent list. I think the only two that I would say maybe that I would change is Southern Hales and Ward. And even then with Ward, I can understand why he's made the list if it's a loan.
Yeah. Well, I had a big discussion about this yesterday, about the Jed Ward thing. So I'm interested to see where you kind of stand. You've kind of given us a hint there. What do you think the wider future is for Jed Ward with us?
Jed. See, I said this, obviously, some of you might know I do this TikTok and I made literally just before we came on to record this, I'd made a TikTok about the retain list. And I said in that one, I think he needs another loan because I don't think he's, with Brad as well, the situation with that, I don't think he's quite ready to be our number one yet. So I think he needs one more loan. And if he can't break into the squad after that, I think that's then his time to go because he's had enough opportunities to get in, break into the squad. And as much as I think he's a good goalkeeper, don't get me wrong, I think he is a very good goalkeeper, and I think he could make an impact definitely for a National League. So we saw it with Yeovil. I mean, if he went back to Yeovil, that would be a good move for him. But even I think at lower end League Two side, even someone like, I know York have better ambitions than lower end League Two, but someone like York could benefit from him. I don't know, maybe like a Tranmere or something like that. There's definitely clubs out there that could benefit from a player of Jed Ward's calibre. I just think at the moment, especially if Brad is as good as he was next season, I just don't think at the moment we benefit from him, but I think we could. And I think that's why we give him one more year to see if he can break into the side. And then if not, I think that's it.
See, this is kind of where my issue is I currently, as of right now, don't see that pathway in. And also, I'm interested to see where he goes on loan, but I almost feel like it's a little bit of a waste of time because I don't see us. I mean, we could. I'll be interested to see if we do, but I don't see a world where we send him to another League Two side.
No, that is true. Yeah.
But equally, we send him back down to the National League. What more can he really prove that he didn't prove in this last season with Yeovil?
That is a very good point. Yeah, that is true. I mean, you just feel like if you keep sending him to the National League, his career is just going to stagnate. And I think he's got the potential to improve. I mean, we saw him like in League One even. I mean, obviously we weren't amazing, but he didn't, make a fool of himself when Griffiths left and he had to play the second half of the season. He was competent. Obviously, he wasn't world beating, which obviously is a bonus in a goalkeeper. I mean, I wouldn't quite say Brad Young's been world beating either, but he has been, I would say, on balance of everything, better than Jed Ward was last season. But
yeah, mm-hmm.
But you could see the confidence there.
Yeah, my kind of issue is. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying you can see that there's that level of competence there, and a side in the National League obviously would benefit from that. But I think Jed going back to the National League himself would not benefit from that.
Yeah, so that's kind of where my standpoint is. If we do send him back down to the National League, he's proven now that he is more than competent at that level. He had a fantastic season last season. And as people have said, top end National League. The issue is for a goalkeeper, how much of a difference does it make where you're playing in the National League?
Where you are.
It's not like
learning
to play for a side that's pushing. It's almost like the higher you go, the less pressure there is on you.
So that is true.
It for Yeovil. What can he prove for like a Forest Green if he was to go there, for example, that he couldn't prove for Yeovil?
No, it's a very true point, especially like you made the point about he's going to face a lot less pressure, being at sort of, say they were in the division still, obviously they're in League Two, but say he went to York this season. I mean, their defence was so good. He's going to have a lot easier ride of it. And obviously it sounds a bit silly, but like in some weird ways, if you've got a lone player, you want them to face a bit of pressure, a bit of that, because I think the key phrase is cliche, but the pressure makes diamonds sting. Like, you give him that experience, and that's all you can do is give him the experience, and that can mould him into, a player that can go forward. And I do agree with you, to be fair, that National League is probably, I just think it's difficult because you don't want to release him too early. and then he becomes, just a bit of a beast at another club, and then you think, well, if we'd have just kept him on for one more season, even if we'd have just put him down to the National League, just as a security net to make sure we still have him. God, can you imagine how good a goalkeeper we'd have now? And it's difficult, I think, with Jed, and whether to actually send him out on loan or let him go. I think that is the most difficult one out of the bunch that has been put on the. I think Steve has put him on the list with view to a loan, but
yeah,
it's difficult with Jed, I think.
No, it is, because also where my kind of issue with the pathway is, I'm looking at Brad Young. Brad Young will be here next season. We know that.
No, yeah.
Next season, if we get promoted, here I see him sticking around. If we don't get promoted, that's almost the only route where I could see Jed getting away in, because I feel like if we don't get promoted but he plays well, he will probably get a better move.
Yeah.
I think there's a good chance of that. So then
is this Brad?
Yeah, as in, I think Brad will get a better move. But there I see a route in for Jed to replace him. But that's almost the issue. Do we want to rely on his future in this team coming down to us not achieving what we want?
Not achieving what we want to achieve. And I think that's maybe something that Steve needs to look at. Be a bit like, not necessarily, but have some sort of ruthless edge of, at the end of the day, obviously this season, especially the second half, has been about consolidation and just making sure we don't slide even further backwards. But now the aim has got to be about improving. And I mean, Jed, I do think could be a part of that. It's just whether he's good enough yet and whether he can be good enough. I think he's one of those that has the potential, but do you want to rely on potential too much when you've got to think about the here and now?
Yeah, no, it's exactly that. And it's a difficult one. I'm completely on the fence at the minute about where I'd go.
Jed, which I think that's fair enough. Well, I want to talk about Southern Hells now. Oh, sorry, I think your audio went a little bit there. Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll just talk about Southern Hells now, because this is the one that I completely. I mean, I can see why he's done it, but I don't agree with it. I think he's still got a lot to give at this club. I think the injuries have just completely and utterly done him in, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it's a shame, because he started the season so well as well. Like, he was a real bright spark. I think when we put that little bit of a run together at the start of the season, he was a pretty integral part of that. Obviously,
100%. Yeah.
Towards the Grimsby game and goal in particular as the highlight. So it is a shame, but I think it's a shame, but it's an understandable one. I feel like there's not.
Yeah, I think it's understandable why he's done it. Yeah, but I just think he's got. Mm-hmm. For me, I just think he's got. If he can have a fit season, he's got a lot that he can give this club, even in a side that is pushing that end of the table. I think maybe, obviously, it's difficult. If he'd have kept, this injury record up next season, then you could potentially say, well, it's just not going to work. But I think one more season would have been fair for him. But I can see why Steve's done it. I just think one more season would have been fair.
Yeah, no, it's hard. I mean, quality-wise, no issues whatsoever. He's a League One standards wing-back. I mean, even when he was 100%. Playing top court, he had as many fitness issues as he did. So when he played, he was really highly rated there. He just
definitely.
Which that's almost what kind of consolidates the decision. Is this isn't an issue that's specific to this one season. This is something that's been a course, something that's occurred over the course of his career, particularly his recent career.
Yeah, that is true. And I think it's difficult when you give a player too many opportunities. If they're consistently getting those injuries on their record, I think you do have to get to a point where you're just a bit ruthless and say, hang on, what can you give if you're constantly on the physio table? And maybe Steve thinks we've got to that point with Macaulay now.
Yeah, no, I think we have to. Do you remember what even caused his injury? Was there any sort of challenge,
to be honest?
Just something went?
I think it might have been in training. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it might have been in training. I think it was sort of middle of September, I think. I can't quite remember, really. It's been a while. It's strange because he's one of those players that, even though he was probably one of our better players during that first half of the season, because it was during I just forget he exists. I try and blank the first half of the season out of my mind as much. Yeah. So and I just forget he exists sometimes. I think that might be a big reason why he's found the transfer list, is because not in anything he's done wrong. He's just injured, but he's become forgettable for fans. And if you've got a player like that, can you really maintain their future at a club?
No, I would have been on board if we did, but I'm not upset that we haven't.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously the rest of the transfer list is pretty self-explanatory. The players that are on there, you would expect them to be on there, with the exception of McEachran, but even then I'm not complaining he's on the list. McEachran was one that I wasn't expecting to be on it, but I'm not complaining that he's on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't see much of a future here for him.
Yeah,
unfortunately, because I did think he actually had a really good start to the season.
But
yeah,
I just think it all fell apart.
And also against Tranmere when he came on, which is like
he didn't look great, did he?
No. Of him that we've had, he looked poor.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on now to the out of contract players. Like I said, there's only 2 of these. Luke Thomas, I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. He's not played much at all this season. And I mean, he's had some impact. The Newport game, I think, of particularly, but that's about it, really. And I think it was only really a matter of time before this was going to happen. And I just think he's one of those that's not really in Steve's plans, which is fair enough.
It's just, the issue for him was always getting that quality to come out consistently, because he has the makings of a player that can do very well here. We've seen him perform for us at League 2 level. We've seen him perform for us at League 1 level.
We've seen him perform
for other sides at League 1 level. He has the quality. He just cannot seem to kind of keep a grasp of it. And he's got the other attributes you need. I mean, his energy is ridiculous, particularly off the ball. I think he's got all the makings of like a perfect wing back at this level. But
definitely.
He just can't seem to put it together for long enough. And there's only so long you can accommodate that, really.
Yeah, I think that is the big reason why he's gone, is just the fact that he doesn't play much, and he's got quality in there. It just doesn't seem to come out enough, especially for a side that wants to push, wants to progress. You need that consistent quality, and Luke just doesn't quite have that at the moment. Whether he can get that back in his career, and I hope he does get that back in his career, because I do like him, and I will be sad to see him go. I just think it's the right time for everyone that he moves on.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of his. I think you'll probably know that I've always talked pretty highly of Luke Thomas.
Yeah.
But again, it's another one where it's a shame, but it's a shame that I understand.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Lockyer, we're going to talk about obviously the other out of contract player. I'm not sure what to think about this one, because on the one hand, I do see it. He's not played much this season. He hasn't had an incredible impact when he's come in. But we were talking about this last week, about how we think Lockyer, on his day can be a real asset to the team. And I think it's one that we might get away with, but it's one that we also definitely could look back on and think, why did we do that?
Yeah, I'm really kind of intrigued. I will be very surprised if he signs for someone else. The only kind of scenario that makes sense in my mind is that we've released him to move him into a different role.
Potentially, yeah.
I know the idea that's kind of been talked up is him potentially replacing Byron Anthony in his role.
In the academy.
Yeah, which that I could understand if it's just a case of he's not got as much ambition to play as he did anymore.
Yeah.
But
especially maybe when he had such not such a terrible, but the return to Rovers hasn't been what he wanted. And I think that could play on his mind as like, well, if this is going to be what football is for me going forward, the playing aspect, I mean, is there much point? Might as well. And then if Steve already has, that might be the reason he's been released. Steve might say, look, Byron stepped up to the first team. We've got this role going. Would you be interested? I mean, he might have had discussions with Tom, and Tom's like expressed, look, I'm not really happy. I don't want to play football anymore. This hasn't been what I expected. And it's all speculation though, isn't it? And at the end of the day, the only cold, hard fact we know is that Tom Lockyer will not be contracted to Rovers in the playing squad. And I mean, I see why it's happened, but I do think it is a bit of a shame. I do think he still had one more season to give at Rovers. Even if he didn't play much, just that sort of steady presence, that experience could have been of use to us when we're pushing up that end of the table. But I do think there are reasons behind it. and I do see why it's happened.
I think for him, obviously, we don't know what his kind of mental state is, but I think for him, especially if he doesn't move on to a different side, he can almost just take a sense of achievement, regardless of how his performances have been, from the fact that he
That
did
he's
what
got
at
back
one
to
point would
football.
have seemed impossible, which is getting
Yeah,
back and
yeah,
being a professional footballer again, even if it's only been for a short time.
yeah.
He's done what a
That
lot
is
of
a very
people didn't expect him to do.
yeah. No, I think
Mm.
that's a very true point, and maybe that was his ultimate goal in some ways, just to get back to football, have that experience of it again, and then see how it goes. And then maybe he thought in his mind, if it doesn't go well, that can be it. I'll just call it a day. At least I've done it, and he's done it. To be fair to him, it was very nice to have him back at Rovers. Obviously, he'll always be a legend, especially for what he did in the first spell. But I think even just him as a bloke and as a teammate and as a character in the dressing room, he just seems like a very nice person who just seems really nice to be around. And for that, I will always, hold Tom Lockyer in high regard, and I wish him well in whatever he does in the future. And if he comes back to Rovers in a coaching capacity, then I would be very happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to know until time goes on, but I will be very surprised if he moves on somewhere else. Even if he
Yeah,
takes a coaching role somewhere else, that I can understand. If he takes a playing role somewhere else, I will be, I think, confused is the word to use about what the kind of
yeah,
situation was.
yeah, fair enough.
But again, I understand if it is our decision. I do also understand why. I don't think there's any too much negativity we can take from it. Definitely not towards him. I mean, like you said,
No,
he is a
100%
legend
no.
of this football club, always will be.
Yeah.
And yeah, wish him well for whatever he goes on to do, and hopefully that is still here.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, we'll move on now to the loanees, of course, that we've had that are returning to their parent clubs. I think you pretty much know them, but for whatever reason, if you don't, Yusuf Akamrich, of course, going back to Tottenham. Kane Thompson-Summers, he goes back to MK Dons. Kofi Balmer goes back to Motherwell. Tommy Lee goes back to Bradford City. And Richie Smallwood goes back to Tranmere Rovers. Now, I'm looking at this list of, it is 5 loanees, and 3 of them immediately stand out to me as ones that should be priorities for permanent transfers in the summer. Kofi Balmer, Tommy Lee, Richie Smallwood. Yusuf, if we can get him, but I don't think we will.
Yeah, 4 of them are priorities, 3 of them are achievable priorities.
Yes,
is the way to say
yeah.
that.
I think that is
Yeah.
true. Yeah,
But so this is going to be the biggest question for me, certainly in the early stages of the window, is who comes back. I'm interested to hear where your thoughts are on this. My thoughts currently are 2 of the 3.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's going to be Balmer. I think Balmer is somewhat nailed on, to be honest.
Yeah, he seems like the one where there's kind of been the most speculative interest elsewhere, that I don't see a world where there is any other option for him, really.
I think if there's interest, it'll be from us, and I think he's formed such a good relationship with the club, with Steve, with the fans, and everything. I mean, we love him, don't we? Let's be fair. And he's been so good for us. I think it would just be the perfect match, and I think he is that sort of centre back that can push forward into a promotion winning side, and if that's what we want to achieve, why not?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think even if there is other interest, our interest is always going to be there, and we're always going to have that little bit of a step up, because he knows he has an environment here that works for him. He has a group of players here that he knows well. He has a coaching team here that he knows well and works under very well. He has a fan base here that absolutely love him to bits. Speaking from personal experience, I absolutely love the bloke.
Yeah,
and
don't we all?
I will be very, very surprised if he doesn't end up back here.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think it just seems like the perfect move. I think he's out. Is he out of contract at Motherwell, or am I being stupid?
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's out of contract anyway. I can't see him being offered another one. It just makes sense. Even if you look at it from a sort of objective perspective of taking all the Rovers bias aside, out of contract at his current club, he's been on loan for half a season at a club where he's done very well. He's progressed his career in a way because he's getting consistent senior football playing very well. He's an asset for the club. You know, not just his long throw and everything, but how good he is as a centre-back partnership alongside Alfie Kilgore, even on his own sometimes if he has to. He's got a fan base who loves him. He's got a coach and staff who appreciate him, know how to, you know, mould him into a squad and into a better player. I mean, if you take all the Rovers bias aside, if you looked at, say this was Exeter for whatever reason, and you were looking at, say, Kofi Balmer had gone there, and those were all the factors, of course. I know it wouldn't be this year because they've just gone down. But if you were looking at all those factors for another club, you would be like, well, the obvious move is for him to go there. And that is the case with Kofi and Rovers. Is the obvious move, if he does move on in the summer from Motherwell, which he probably will, is for him to come here. And like you said, I would be extremely surprised if we don't see Kofi Balmer back in a Rovers shirt next season.
Yeah, and it's such a perfect match as well. He is literally like, I feel like if Steve Evans was to create like a virtual centre-back to play for his club, he would make Kofi Balmer. He's hard-working, he's a hard player, and he loves getting in strikers' heads, and he'll give absolutely everything he's got.
Yeah. And he's got weapons in his game, like the long throw is something that we never had as a club. And obviously, I know it's not his entire game, like making it sound like I'm like reducing Kofi Balmer to a long throw. I'm not, but just even like extra weapons like that you can add to his already incredible game. It is just, it makes sense for the club, not just for Kofi.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, even we've seen him pop up at the other end. He had those two pretty ridiculous goals that he scored for us as well. He's got that.
Only scores screamers.
There's really, there's really no sort of like, I don't really see many limitations to his game. His only real limitation is he can be a little bit rash. I mean, we look at the penalty he gave away at home. I think it was like the last penalty we faced where he like,
I think it was,
almost killed someone. He has that in him.
But I think that's just sort of a product of him being a bit young, a bit raw. And I think he's only going to get better as time goes on. He's going to get more experience. He's going to... the thing is, you say he's rash, which he is sometimes, but he's one of those where more often than not, he gets the challenges right, even if they are slightly rash.
Yeah, no, he does. I mean, I remember we both went to what I believe was his first game, which was that Plymouth game in the Cup. And I don't know if you remember there, he came off the bench and within about 2 minutes of being on the pitch, had clotheslined someone. Yeah. And we thought we kind of had an idea of what we were going to be working with. But no, he's been a lot more assured than I thought he was going to be, which is 100% a positive surprise.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's probably, I would say, main priority alongside, I think if we're talking about, if we rank this in terms of realistic chance of getting them back, Kofi's got to be number one. And then you look at Richie Smallwood after that. And I mean, there's a sort of, I wouldn't be terribly devastated if Richie doesn't come back, because I think that's a big thing with Kofi as well, is in a weird way, despite the fact he's a centre-back and he's quite a unique centre-back, and I think he'd be quite hard a role to fill with someone else. Whereas Richie, you could fill with someone else, but I think he's got that passion for the club you can quite clearly see. And, you know, the fans love him. And I think he's got that motivation back, which I think is something he lost at Tranmere. Obviously, it didn't start off very well, and then the fans got on his back and it just spiralled from there. I think now he's got that good relationship with us. You know, we see what he can do for us. I can see it happening. I'm not going to say it's guaranteed. I think, like with Balmer, I think it's near on guaranteed. But with Smallwood, I don't think it's 100% likely. But I think I would not be surprised if he comes back.
Yeah, because I don't really see necessarily a different move for him. I don't see anything else that really makes sense that would be realistic for him.
Especially with how old he's getting as well.
Exactly,
I think he's still got one more season left in him. And I think that's why we should... Maybe if we went up to League One, that would be the time to move him on. But I think if... You know, he could do well in a League Two side, a high League Two side. He's getting on a bit, like you said. He's probably not got many more realistic moves left. So it would make sense. I think the big thing though is his family. Would he want to move down to Bristol for a whole year when he's already been there for half a month? He's quite a big family man, isn't he? Could there be a few sort of EFL sides, someone like a Rochdale? I mean, I think he's northeast, isn't he, like Middlesbrough way, but that's still a lot more achievable if Rochdale went up, someone like that, even like an Oldham or something, than Rovers. And I mean, obviously, it's not always about that, but that can be a big factor. And I think that could be a reason that might draw him towards sort of one of those more northern teams in League Two. But I do think there are also big draws to Rovers that could see him come here.
Yeah, sorry, I'm losing your audio a bit, so if there's any delays, I apologise for that. It's fine. But I think that is really the only sort of bump in the road, because I think everything from a pure footballing perspective does just make sense for both parties. So he's someone I do expect to come back as well.
Yeah, I can definitely see it. Yeah, I think one as well that I would love to see back. I think these first three are realistic. This is the least realistic out of the three, but I still think is a decent chance. Is Tommy Lee? I mean, he's been incredible, hasn't he? What else can you say that we haven't already said about Tommy Lee? I mean, the chances he can create, he can change the game out of nowhere. He does so well in that midfield. He can run at players. He can take them on. He does everything really. He does a bit of Smallwood. He does a bit of Cavan. He does a bit of everything. He's a bit like, obviously he plays in the midfield, but he's a bit like sort of everyone outfield wrapped into one, and he can do everything all at once. I reckon in another life, Tommy Lee could have made quite a good utility player.
Yeah, no, 100%. And he's one of those where, like, I've probably been a little bit more critical of Tommy Lee than I think most have. But I think his most invaluable quality that he brings to us is he is that player that can spark something out of nowhere.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Well, you saw it against Crewe. Yeah. I think that's the best example. Was obviously we were 1-0 down. That was a big game in our season. Now that we look back on it, and he comes out of nowhere with 2 moments of magic, completely turns the game around. If we'd have lost that game, we would have still only been 3 points clear. We end up going 6 points clear, and then it's a snowball effect from there. Genuinely, we don't talk about it a lot, but I do think that Crewe game was a huge, huge turning point, and it was just from Tommy Lee finding those moments out of nowhere. And I mean, even in the game where we're playing well and like comfortably dominating, he does just find those little moments of brilliance. And I do think he's he's a good player. I mean, obviously, and we could benefit with someone like him. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sorry, I'm fighting against the sun here. Yeah, absolutely. It's again, he has just a similar issue to Smallwood, which is he going to be willing to relocate? He's another player who's based up north, and obviously he has the additional roadblock of we're going to have to go through Bradford. He's not out of contract. We will have to negotiate it with them directly.
Yeah, that is true.
There's some bumps in the road. We've seen a lot of conflicting reports, but I'll be interested. I'm not sure either way.
Yeah, I think it's one that could happen, couldn't happen. Would be good if it happens. We'll just have to see. I think one that I would love to happen. It's just too unrealistic for me. I know there's a lot of talk about people saying, oh, maybe one more year, I can see it. And it's not going to happen. Yusuf is gone, unfortunately. What a player. It's been a pleasure to have him for this half a season, but I just can't see him coming back.
No, I mean, I think there was a big difference I compared the way he spoke in his Instagram posts compared to Kofi Barmer. Barmer was very much like, it's been great, and that's it. And then the comments were very much like, oh, we'll see you soon. Where you was a lot more, it's been great, thank you, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It felt
it's been a pleasure, all of this. Whereas Barmer was like, oh, that was a good season. I mean, he obviously didn't say it outright because he can't with all the contracts, but it was sort of, in a way, he was sort of hinting at a see you soon, if you know what I mean. Whereas
Yeah.
with Yusuf, it was very clear to see that it's just like a thank you and goodbye sort of thing. And I mean, for Spurs, I don't think you could blame them for not wanting us to have him again, and I don't mean that in a deprecating way to us, but just we're League Two. I mean, there's bigger clubs up the pecking order that would very definitely benefit from a player of Yusuf's quality, and I think he'll be League One at least next season.
Yeah, and Spurs have done well with the players they've sent out. I think I'm right in saying, obviously, it's a much higher level. But is it Will Lancashire at Oxford's on loan from Spurs?
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
I think
definitely.
they'll probably have a similar vision in their mind for Yusuf to what they've had of someone like him.
Yeah, that's true. They've got that food chain of players that they can keep sort of pushing up. You know, that as one Yusuf comes down to what someone like us, you have that Will Lancashire that moves back up. You know, especially if Spurs went down, I think Lancashire could be definitely one of their starters next season.
Oh yeah.
And then the food chain just keeps going. Yusuf gets pushed up it, and then you have someone else that comes down to our level. You never know, that could be with us in the future. But I think Yusuf has just got to the point where he's matured enough. I mean, even you've seen it. Obviously he still is quite raw. He's quite young, and he does sometimes still do. That's the only criticism. That is the only criticism, and even then, I think it's one that will iron out with time. Is that he sometimes does too much. But even then, you've seen it over the course of his loan spell with us. He's becoming more of a team player.
Yeah. No, 100%. And it's a mistake that almost comes from a sense of self-belief, which is as much as it's a mistake that's coming from a good place and a place that will benefit him moving forward.
And you'd rather he was a bit raw, and does too much than not do enough. That's I would much rather be saying, oh, he does too much sometimes. He's, he could make the odd pass here and there. Than why is he just stood on the edge of the box, trying to fart around, trying to find a pass and not doing anything, make a run? You know what I mean? It's a much less frustrating problem to have than you could have with someone, new and, not wanting to fail and, make a bad impression. And I think that's the good thing with Yusuf is he's got enough confidence that he knew he could come to Rovers and make a good impression. He had confidence in himself that he would not fail at Rovers. And I think, obviously, you can have that little bit of not doubt. You can say, oh, it might not go my way, and still succeed. But Yusuf was confident from the off, knew I'm going to come into this place, I'm going to improve it, and I'm going to show them what I can do. And that breeds performance. And even just, for the whole club, that breeds performance. Yusuf can lift the other players with his performance, which I think he did in some ways. And then that breeds confidence in the rest of the players. That breeds performance going forward. And it's just, everyone talks about the spiral of doom. That's the spiral of joy that we saw with Yusuf.
Yeah. And again, just touching on those issues, as far as issues go, to say that our biggest issue that we had with a player was that he was too confident and too expressive. I mean, with all due respect to some of our past players, I don't think those were the kind of things we were saying about Ryan Love.
Oh my God,
no! I'm happy to take as far as things go, especially if it's only a short-term thing as well, because he is likely going to be moving on. Because those issues have also come with those moments of brilliance.
And
have been invaluable.
The moments of brilliance have far outweighed those issues. I mean, those issues have, in many ways, you've seen it. When he gets it right, if he does too much but he gets it right, we've seen it with the Tranmere goal, even the Newport goals. I mean, they were really well taken finishes, but he did quite a lot just to set the finishes up. And then when he took them, they were fantastic. But we've seen it. If he could get it right, the moments of brilliance that he can produce, oh my days, they are so good. And I mean, whoever gets Yusuf next season, you are one lucky club. If it's by some miracle us, then I might be drinking for a week straight after that gets announced. I'm not going to lie. But I think it's he's just such a special player. We've seen it. It's nice as well. We had a bit of a lull. Obviously, we talked about how Joey was quite good with the loan players. It's nice to see that we're finally getting trusted with players like Yusuf. Even obviously, I don't think he's ever going to have quite the career that Yusuf does, but players like Kofi Palmer that still are very good and made good impact, that are young and, need nurtured. And I think we're getting back to one of those eras where we will be a trusted club with loan players again. And I think that's another huge thing that Steve brings to the club. I haven't glazed him enough yet in this episode, so I've got to. That's one big thing that he brings to the club is he is trusted to develop players that are young, and we will get. I think we will get more. Maybe not quite on the quality of Yusuf next season, but definitely close.
Yeah, no, I mentioned that last week, didn't I? It's almost...
Yeah, you did, yeah.
It's a bit of like a statement to the rest of the footballing world that we know what we're doing. And it's like a bit of a vote of confidence almost, which can be really beneficial moving forwards.
Yeah, 100%. Well, finally, we'll just talk about Kane then. That's the last loanee that has gone out of the club back to MK Dons, of course, and it's just a shame, to be honest, because it didn't work at all, did it?
No, I mean, I think the simplest way to say it is thank you, mate, but off you pop.
Yeah. I mean, he had his moments, didn't he? I mean, the Swindon goal was quality, it was well taken. Mm-hmm. He played well, you said it last week or the week before, and it's true, he played well against Gillingham, and that's pretty much about it. I mean, he had the moments. You got to thank him for what he did, but you're in no real devastated state that he's gone. Let's be honest.
Exactly. Yeah, he was always kind of the outlier from that group.
Yeah,
I think.
100%. Yeah,
it's really exemplified with how we're talking about them now, about how they could potentially be staying on, and he's the one that like no discussion's gone towards.
Really, well, no, we were like even with. I mean, there's more chance that Kane is back here for whatever reason in the summer than Yusuf is, and we're still talking about how we want Yusuf to stay more than we want Kane to stay. And I think that sums up just how his loan spell's gone. It's just not really worked. It's not worked for us. It's not worked for him. It's one of those that we just got to draw a line under and move on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, that is going to be it for episode 4 of Rovers Rambles. It's been a long one today. This is our longest one by far. We've gone 20 minutes over our longest episode. So thank you for anyone who sticked with us for this whole episode, because it has been a long one. Thank you again, Jaimie, for joining me, as always.
Yeah.
Before we go, I just, again, want to talk about the 10K. It's on Sunday. We are finally in race week. And, of course, the Just Giving is still open. I think I'm on £135, so I need another 115. So if anyone has even a fiver, even £2, anything to give, that would be absolutely fantastic. I still think the YouTube links are busted, unfortunately. But if you're listening to this on Spotify, as always, I'll leave the Just Giving link in the description. And anything you can give would be fantastic. But that is it for episode 4 of Rovers Rambles. Thank you all very much for listening, and we'll see you next week.